So the idea of Regatta Roulette gets people really worried, and I hope I'm not jinxing it this year by making this video and stating this right now. But the fact of the matter is, the regatta doesn't get postponed that often, once every 15 years or so. If you're not from Newfoundland, or in particular, if you're not from the Northeast Avalon, St. John's area, the regatta is a boat race. We don't have like the CNE or the PNE or Klondike Days or the Stampede or any of these big events that take place in other big Canadian cities. But what we do have is the regatta. If you're not familiar with the regatta, it's an annual event that takes place down at Quidi Vidi Lake, which is a short distance away from downtown St. John's. It's been going on for a little over 200 years, which I'm obviously going to talk a little bit more about in this video. But it's a big day, it's a civic holiday. A lot of people around St. John's in the area really look forward to it. A lot of people don't want to have anything to do with it. I'm on the camp that really enjoys it and really looks forward to it though. You're the type of person that enjoys the regatta? Like, do you like big crowds and unpredictable weather, sometimes stiflingly hot, or sometimes walking around in the foggy mist in early August when it's supposed to be stifling hot? For me, it's my favorite day of the summer annually, and one that I count on every year, that I get most excited about, is Regatta Day.
I got 10 left! What's it? Only $1? 10 tickets left! 10 tickets left! Hold up the wheel! 3! Nathaniel, 3! 3 over here. Let's get them all sold. Nathaniel! All right?
It's a boat race that takes place on Quidi Vidi Lake, and it runs through the course of the first Wednesday of every August. Of course, it's weather dependent, which we'll talk a little bit about in this video, but it's a tradition that has become the highlight of a lot of people's summers if you grew up in the St. John's area. A lot of people dread it, a lot of people stay as far away from it as they can. Some people don't want to have anything to do with it, but me, it's my favorite thing to do in St. John's. It's all about the food and the people watching. There's tens of thousands of people show up every year regardless of the weather, as long as it goes out. You got the sounds and the carnival barkers, the people at the spinning wheels that are vying for your attention, and the sound of the wheels themselves plinking through, the sound of the CLB Armory Band playing the Banks of Newfoundland and the bandstand. It's just, once a year it happens, and it's so refreshing to get down. Even if you're not playing, just to stand up next to one of the little booths with the cash wheels of the Crown and Anchor and just hear that plinking sound. I really like it. It's just all part of the overall experience.
Live at the regatta right now. It's probably the biggest crowd I've ever seen here. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but last year the regatta was delayed by a day, postponed, and the numbers are like gotta be double what was here last year, even though the day was actually a little more clear last year. It was like kind of overcast in the morning, and then the sun came out, and today it's been overcast a little bit all day, but it is maybe 20 degrees, no real wind, but there's a bit of a cool breeze. It's like just a perfect day for something like this. I'm down back at the lake by myself at the moment. My son's kind of tired. I got him a little blow-up toy. He likes blue dinosaurs. He likes the color blue, and he likes dinosaurs, so I think that'll actually work all right.
Ready, number 1? You ready, number 2? Are you ready, number 3? You ready, number 4? You ready, number 5? Are you all ready?
Now, as we're leading into the regatta, now it's going to take place on the 7th of August this year, the schedule for the first Wednesday of August, which happens to be the 7th in 2024. I had a few questions kind of going through my head over statistics. So I fell down a rabbit hole and started digging through a lot of the stories on some of the online news sources, VOCM, NTV, The Herald had a few nice stories, CBC Online. And then I also found the official Royal St. John's Regatta website, stjohnsregatta.ca. And on that website in particular, there's a project that looks like it may have been abandoned because there's been no updates in over 20 years now. But there's a lot of information that was super interesting for me, like a bit of a data geek. Now, I'm not going to talk about everything that I found on this video because it goes back literally over 200 years. I just wanted to talk a little bit about a few items that kind of piqued my interest. There's a few things that I found really interesting that maybe you'll find interesting too. Now, I've talked about Regatta Roulette in a couple of videos that I've made over the past year or two. And it comes up when I talk about the regatta, of course, but it also comes up when I talk about the George Street Festival or just things to do in St. John's. And it's an interesting concept because you are kind of taking a risk by going out and partying on the Tuesday before the regatta.
I went out with my wife last night to the George Street Festival, and she's paying for that today. The wife made it out. She's feeling better now.
So of course, if you're from the St. John's area, you already know that the regatta is a municipal holiday. Services and businesses within the city of St. John's proper usually close for the day. And for the last 30, almost 40 years now, the George Street Festival has coincided with the regatta. If I'm not mistaken, back a couple of years ago, the George Street Festival would end on the Tuesday before the regatta. Now there's a Wednesday night concert and the festival goes on for one last day on the actual regatta Wednesday. But the whole concept of Regatta Roulette comes into going out and going partying on a Tuesday, thinking that you're going to have, as a St. John's resident, a municipal holiday on the Wednesday. And the whole idea of roulette and gambling comes down to the fact that if the regatta is postponed on the Wednesday, the holiday is pushed for a day or however long it takes for the weather to get better and to actually get back down to the pond. So for people that would go out on a Tuesday night and go particularly hard, they would have a very rough day on the Wednesday at work if they had to go into work. Now, the thing that I found interesting when I dug through this, and I'm thinking in my living memory, I definitely remember a couple of occasions when the regatta was postponed due to weather. It could be rain, it could be high winds, whatever the situation is. If the committee, the unelected committee that oversees the regatta, decides on the morning of the first Wednesday of August in any particular year that the weather is not amenable to rowing, they will postpone the regatta. The most recent postponement of the regatta, of course, was 2022, which in my opinion was really unfortunate because after the full-on cancellation of the event in 2020 and then the scaled back version of the event in 2021 with the rowing taking place but no concessions, no garden party, it was really important for 2022, which is also known as Come Home Year, a big tourism initiative by the provincial government. It was really important that the pinnacle of the tourism season, the regatta, go ahead. The decision was made on the day of the regatta, though, to postpone it due to high winds and possibility of some inclement weather. The regatta went ahead on 2022 on the Thursday the following day, and it was a noticeably less busy event that could have carried forward from the cancellation and the scaling back of the regatta for the 2 previous years. But in any case, it definitely felt less busy on the Thursday. It definitely had a less busy feel. 2023, the event did go ahead on the first Wednesday of August, and I can tell you that I don't remember there ever feeling like it was so busy. So 1 year later, it definitely bounced back in terms of people getting down to the lake to watch the races and play the games. But other than 2022, in my lifetime, I only remember a couple of occasions when the regatta was postponed. So going back to 2007 and 2008, I'm not sure which year because I wasn't actually in town for this one, but I know it was postponed due to weather in one of those 2 years. So that's 14, 15 years before 2022. And then going back before that postponement, I actually remember another regatta in somewhere in the mid-90s, 1993, 1994 maybe, where the event was postponed after starting. So they called the races about halfway through and then they finished off the actual races another day. So it wasn't postponed completely, but it was interrupted. I'm sure there's more situations where weather has postponed the event from the start because the idea of Regatta Roulette is so ingrained in people's minds. But if you look at it over the last 30 years, there's been 2 postponements and a partial postponement. So the idea of Regatta Roulette gets people really worried, and I hope I'm not jinxing it this year by making this video and stating this right now, but the fact of the matter is the regatta doesn't get postponed that often, once every 15 years or so. So, take that for what it's worth. Hopefully it will go ahead on schedule this year, but Regatta Roulette is firmly ingrained in people's minds, but it's not really an issue that we have to deal with on a regular basis, really. Now, another really interesting point that I never thought much about until I fell down this rabbit hole and I found all of these details was the wording when we talk about the anniversary of the regatta. So in 2018 it was known widely as the 200th running of the Royal St. John's Regatta or the 200th rowing. It's not really accurate to word it quite like that. 200th anniversary? Absolutely. Even that's a bit controversial because back around 2003, if I'm not mistaken, they uncovered evidence saying that in 1816 there was a regatta in St. John's Harbor. Before that, they used to say 1824 was the initial year of the regatta. But basically, the St. John's Regatta Committee over the years has determined that there was a royal coronation in 1818, so there was a regatta scheduled in honor of the coronation. So that's the year that they chose as the initial continuously running event. This year will be the 206th anniversary, which is the correct way to put it. To say it's the 206th rowing or the 206th running is just not accurate, because while I just talked about postponements, the postponements have, to my knowledge, always actually gone through and the event was rescheduled and run. But there have been a number of cancellations of the regatta as well. Of course, there's events like World War I and World War II where there have been a few years where it didn't go through. There was the COVID cancellation in 2020. There was the Great Fire of St. John's that pretty much wiped out the whole city in July of 1892. So by the first Wednesday of August that year, it wasn't appropriate to have a race. And there was a number of people that were displaced by that fire that were living on the shores of Quidi Vidi at that time. But there was also political incidents that prevented the regatta from going ahead for basically the entire 1860s. So there's a lot of years that the regatta didn't take place between 1818 and today. Not all the documentation makes that clear, but there's at least 15 times where the regatta didn't go ahead. So to say it's the 206th running or the 206th rowing of the Royal St. John's Regatta isn't entirely accurate. I'm splitting hairs when I say this, but it's just fine to say the 206th anniversary here in 2024.
But if you do enjoy people watching, you enjoy raffles and games of chance and crown and anchor, it's the type of place where you can go for a single day and just kind of enjoy summer with a big portion of the city of St. John's. There's an area for kids where you can play kids games, ride little ponies around a circle, get your face painted. There's also a beer garden if you're into that, and there's lots of games going around most of the lake.
So a regatta by definition is a boat race. But the regatta for me is the garden party. And we would actually pay attention to the boat races a little bit because there's activity going on, especially the championship races. They're a lot of fun. That's kind of the end of the day and you're kind of spent with the games and just the people, I guess, in general. But it's like the reason for the event to actually take place is these races, but it was never the main focus for me. And I think for the 50,000 people or so that show up every year, it's there, and a lot of people do really pay attention to it, but it just isn't really the main event for the majority of the big crowd, in my opinion.
I'm over close to the bandstand right now, and they're playing the Banks of Newfoundland, the traditional regatta song. It's like there's a race just started. You can see the boats on the water there. That's just kicking off another race. I'm not sure which race this is, who's in there, but there's 3 boats. One looks like it's pretty far ahead. So I played a couple of spin wheels, didn't win anything yet. I got a couple more dollars to try my luck with that and see if I can come up with a few extra dollars more than I came with, but we'll see what happens here. It's been a really good regatta. It's the 205th. Like I said, I don't know if I've ever seen a crowd this big before here. And yeah, I've been really enjoying the day.